The 2008 presidential election has definitely turned many heads and created a lot of interest from people all over the world.
And there is prominent historic significance of the election of Barack Obama. For so many years, historical leaders of the past fought for equality, the right to vote, and certain freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution. Here's Shamika Neely with more.
Freedoms to speak, sit in a public setting, drink from a water fountain, and even the right to vote haven't always been afforded to all Americans, specifically African Americans. Basic human rights were once privileges for people of color. Past hardships and the struggle of African Americans on a quest for equal rights, which lasted more than a century, are being struck down today by just 3 words. Yes, we can.
It inspired me so very much, that my race was trying to reach freedom.
The election of Barack Obama at the national level is remarkable, really remarkable.
African American people at one time were property, not even citizens. And so when you look at this wide span of over, 200 plus years, and now, someone from the group is the president of the United States, that's just that's a big deal, to say the least.
Don't forget, slaves were not only forced to work for no pay, but they were not educated. They were not allowed to read or to learn how to read. They were not allowed to write or learn how to write. They were not allowed to own property. They weren't able to select who they could marry. And oftentimes what was particularly degrading was that families were totally broken up.
African Americans were held against their will in a building such as this one, located at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. This particular slave jail was used by John W. Anderson, who bought and sold enslaved Africans from 1828 to 1834.
And that's where the Underground Railroad came into play, because sympathetic whites who detested slavery and thought it was a moral abomination, they were the people that would, take the boats and go across the river and bring slaves to freedom.
The Underground Railroad, the Civil War, women's suffrage, and thousands of deaths, along with the Civil Rights Movement, did assist in banning slavery and guaranteeing voting rights. However, many barriers were still very transparent, which eventually led to separation and inequality.
Being 90 years old, I've seen a lot of changes in my life. I never voted until I was in the military. Where I grew up at, there was voting, which is out of the question, no voting.
Bloomington resident Gene Shipp, an honorable veteran of 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, dedicated his life to his country for 30 years. He received one of the highest honors for his commitment.
I received the Bronze Star in Vietnam action there. It means quite a bit to receive the Bronze Star from the President of the United States.
African Americans such as Shipp paved the way for others. Experts like Hank says the Civil Rights Movement was instrumental, and Obama wouldn't have been possible without the long history of leaders, dedication, and commitment of others.
There was a good deal of attention to the fact that for the first time in American history, you had a viable African American candidate, and by viable I mean someone who actually had a real chance at winning.
Barack, I think, has provided us with a sense that things might change. So we have something that we have not had before. Timing has something to do with it, timing. And we're in a position where the timing is right.
But just because Barack Obama was elected doesn't mean all walls have fallen, dividers have risen, and barriers broken. Some experts feel that racism and segregation still exists.
We've been educated, socialized to see things a certain way. It's not going to change just because suddenly we have new leadership in the White House. The way if you're educated to think a certain way, or miseducated to think a certain way, You're going to have to be educated to think differently, and that takes time.
And Obama's candidacy and his position in the highest office of the land will help do some of that work, but one man's symbolic victory and real presence as a president is not enough.
Each time you see Barack Obama on television now, your notion of what a black man is has to change, and it has to change for the positive because you've got one who's running the country.
People looked at Barack Obama, a man of color, and said, I trust that man to lead this country in a time of great strife and great anxiety. And to me, that is a huge affirmation that people are trying now to look beyond color and evaluate people based on their qualities of leadership and judgment and experience.
Reporting for the weekly special, I'm Shamika Neely.
And Barack Obama will be sworn into office as the 44th President of the United States on January 20th in Washington, D.C.
And Shamika is traveling to the inauguration with a local sorority from Indiana University to see this monumental day through their eyes. WTIU will bring you more on this story next week.